Little farms well tilled, little pockets well filled. Farmer John's dad, Dauphin, Manitoba. We are Real Conversations podcast. Hello, I'm Tamara Michelle. The show is created and produced in Dauphin, Manitoba, and today I have Farmer John back with me, and we are taking a look at some of the different stages and expectations of some of his seeded crops. Thank you to our show sponsors, Banker Marketing, Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa, Real Security Solutions, Right Side Equipment of Dauphin, Oil Depot of Dauphin, Roofs, Furniture and Appliances of Dauphin, Tri Family, Health, Beauty and Fine Gifts of the Paw, Ramsey's Health and Fitness of Dauphin, Cloud9 Canna Supplies of Dauphin, and Hearts to Nature Fine Art Nature Photography. So Farmer John, you're saying that we're out driving around in the middle of a fully seeded field. Of course, there's some drowned out spots, right. But like you're saying, you couldn't normally drive around a field. Like what we're doing right now is not normal.
You don't get a perspective from the middle of your wheat field because you'd be trapping your crop. You wouldn't do this. So
okay.
It's kind of cool because we're seeing right from the middle of a 40-acre field here.
Yeah.
In all directions, you can look and see what it's like. It's kind of cool.
So tell me, how difficult would it be to, when it comes to actually swathing this, like you're gonna have to get creative, are you not?
Well, you'll be cutting you'll be like, it's like a drunken sailor. You'll be kind of wiggling around here, just sort of swath, lay it into a windrow and then let it cure and then try to combine it, so.
Okay.
But you can see that, but it hasn't quite headed out. And I think this is what we call shot blade stage. The heads are gonna be probably in a week from now, this will be headed like that.
Okay, I'm gonna just pan this way and we'll take a look at what you're talking about.
We can get closer if you want to see.
Yeah, so that. Farmer John, you were saying about the cross-pollination so this is again winter wheat that we've been viewing.
Right.
And you were talking about this grass and what it does, why you want to keep the grass from pollinating with your winter wheat.
No, it's with the fall rye specifically.
Oh, the fall rye. Okay.
Wheat is not a problem, but fall rye specifically, when this brome grass is flowering at the same time as the rye, they two cross over, and you can get a condition called ergot, which makes these big long black kernels. They look like little bananas. They're kind of curved like a little, and the seed is distorted, and if you feed that to livestock, they'll abort calves and stuff.
This specifically, tall full, long seeds. Mm-hmm. This is if it cross-pollinates with
the not wheat, but rye specifically. Yes.
Okay, and that's fall rye.
That's fall rye, yeah. So. And
we're going to be checking out that field right away. So but we won't see this around here.
No, because I mowed them already. I've already gone through the process. You have to do it early enough so that you don't. If you go too late, then it happens before you get it mowed. So you want to be in there mowing about the early June or. This year I did it late because it's about 2 or 3 weeks later than it's still going to be early, but it's a little bit because of the season. So
okay.
And this is an example of this is my, I guess we'll call it a headland or a buffer strip here.
Okay.
Between that's the property line there, and this is the edge of my field, and you can see down there where it kind of burps out and these fields are separate. And I will eventually mow this, but I mean you'll see that these fields are too wet to seed, and yet admit you've got crop here. It's kind of funny looking, and people would say you should have written it off and you should have worked it up, but you know. So.
Huh. Well, we're gonna go take a look at that fall rye now because I can't wait. I'm only 5'2", so I'm curious how tall it is. Pretty tall.
It'll be up to your shoulders almost probably.
Oh wow. Okay.
Quite,
well, here we go.
Okay.
So I'm 5'2", and we're standing in. Actually, we'll move over just a little bit. We're standing in Farmer John's
fall rye.
Fall rye. So I don't know if you remember this from when we were talking before, but last time we came out, we were touching it. It was on the ground. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to look back to see how many weeks ago that was approximately. It's got to be about 6 weeks ago, maybe somewhere around there. I think.
Yeah.
So in 6 weeks, you go from ground level to this, and you were saying this is pollinating right now. It's
flowering. I think we call those are anthers. I think they're called as they come off there.
And it's almost like
there's like a pollen.
It's it looks like little flowers.
Yeah, and that'll blow off, and this is critical. You don't want to brome. I mean, there's brome over there, but when it's really close, the close proximity to it, that's not good. So by me mowing it, keeping it back 15, 20 as much as I can here within reason, some of that still maybe come over.
Yeah, so I think you've got at least 20 feet of cut grass between you and the ditches.
Yeah.
And then you got your grass growing. And what kind of fall rye is this? We were talking about that as well.
Well, you mean the variety?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Hazlitt. It's
Okay.
it's been around for a few years. It's sort of it's a somewhat shorter variety. The previous variety I used to grow would be up. This would be add another foot to this, if not more. And then it's hard to get the straw through the combine because
It's too long.
and rye can be, when you're combining rye, the seed can test dry, but you'll still, when you take a look at the straw at the back of the combine, you can almost wring water to the straw. It's really difficult because there's so much. The straw is like a hollow tube.
Okay.
And it's difficult to get rye sometimes to dry down. And
is it kind of waxy?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity? Because it feels...
It's tough to put through.
Actually, you know what? Compared to wheat,
it's got a
it
really
feels tough.
It's got a big, but you see that it's quite thick.
Like a thick, tough outer...
To feed this, and it can humble some pretty. People have had big combines and been humbled by rye straw because it's hard. It's hard to get through.
Okay.
And you don't want to be. Sometimes or usually when the sun starts going down and the dew starts coming on and it's tough, you got to stop combining or if you get plugged up in rye, it'll just wrap around things because it's really kind of because it's so long and it's kind of waxy and viney. It's just.
Okay.
My dad always said that in the old days, the best horse collars were made out of rye straw because they used one complete wrap, so there was no joints. They take the straw and they just...
because of the length.
The old collar, like the horse collar.
Yes.
He always, I don't know if that's true, but he would say that the best horse collars that you could get used rye straw because there was lots of tall straw, and then you didn't have to have, there was just one complete wrap and no joint.
Yeah, around the horse's neck. Yeah, so it was very strong.
Inside the collar, yeah. So.
Wow, interesting. Tell me then, so since I've seen you, have you had a chance to put any fertilizer on this field?
No, this field's...
So this has been untouched since I saw you 6 weeks ago approximately.
We didn't spray for weeds. We've done nothing but...
But I'm looking in here. I mean, I see that odd, you pulled that one little...
Flaxweed. This is a flaxweed there. Some of them are some... That's a flaxweed, but it's...
But there's one.
There's not a lot in here.
But I mean, I'm looking and I don't see tons of it. I see one here.
There's some millet down there, but anything's trying to grow is being choked because it's down and it doesn't get light down in there. This plant is choking and rye has that oleopathic effect too, where it puts something into soil to kind of thwart the growth. You can see things are kind of...
They're trying, but they're not getting very far.
I don't know how to describe it, but it's it's what they say.
It's almost like a toxin. It gives it a natural toxin, but
it gives something into soil that makes plants tougher to grow, and it's something in nature. It's not anything like, it's not modified. It's just the way rye does it. So
that's really neat. Now, compared to your it's winter wheat that we saw over here, this is your fall rye.
Winter wheat.
This is so far advanced.
Right.
I'm sort of in shock because when I saw the winter wheat 6 weeks ago, even the stuff that was doing its very best, right? It was almost seemed like the stuff that was doing its very best was almost more advanced than this. This was almost like a ground sprawling looking plant in the beginning. And now I'm sort of in shock because I'm like, again, I'm 5'2", so I'm like, this is some of these heads are high level.
There's some rogue ones out there that are probably over your head. Like,
well, let me say, it doesn't take a lot to be over my head. I don't know.
But we'll be combining here probably mid-August. A lot of years we're going in the beginning of August, but because we're the flowering process, I'd say, is a couple of weeks behind where it should be, maybe. So we should be comfortably in the middle of mid-August at the latest, I would think, on this. So,
but this is not. So when we take a snapshot of farmers in the parkland, this is like exceptional, and this is not
a lot of rye growing around. There's something. This is non-hybrid too. You can find more hybrid rye. It comes out of German lines, and it's a hybrid where you have to buy new seed every year. Like anything when you hybridize it, they make you have to buy new seed. This is non-hybrid, so I can clean this seed up
and use it for seed next year or this fall.
You could clean this up and seed it. And like when you harvest in August, you could clean it up and seed it 2 or 3 weeks later, and it will grow. Like it doesn't have to sit for a while or anything. It's ready to go.
Okay, and then talk again about, you use this term. It's a big word, vernalization, and you said that's very specific to this and your winter wheat.
Fall rye. If you plant this fall rye in the spring field in May, it'll just grow kind of vegetatively, and you can use it for pasture for your cattle, but it won't set the seed because it has to stop growing normally it gets up about this high and then it stops and then it starts back up in the spring, and that's called vernalization. That has to do.
And it also needs the cold, doesn't it?
Right, and the cold, yeah. Its winter hardiness is at its peak in the fall, and the winter hardiness tends to drop off as you get into February and March, April too. So it's at its hardiest going into the winter.
Okay.
And that's when usually by the time you get snow, but usually by February, March, you've got some snow cover to help too, because the hardiness of the plant is diminished as it goes, sort of a sliding scale downward as you move into spring. So.
Okay.
But then same with winter wheat, and if you tried to plant spring wheat in the fall, it'll just freeze up and it'll kill it.
Very specific.
So
the label really tells you when, in a way.
And there is spring rye that I've never grown. I don't know where you get it, but they do make it. There is a spring rye that you can. It's rye that you plant in the spring, but to me that's not the purpose of fall rye. Is we're getting it in the fall, and then it gets up early in the spring. Whereas spring rye I don't see much of an advantage to that really, like the fall rye. So
okay.
But there is a spring rye, and that would be it looked like this, but it just you plant it in the spring.
Now this crop specifically, if a farmer wanted to plant this, I mean, we had no idea. I mean, I know we look at our Farmer's Almanac, but we had no idea we were going to have this type of spring. Although you say that in farming, I mean, if you've been farming how many decades now?
35 years or so, yeah.
So you've seen the ebbs and flows of nature, and you know that there are unreasonable wet seasons, there's unreasonable dry seasons, and then you have those years, you have those bumper crops, and you really have to be in farming for a long time to be able to kind of weather out a lot of that stuff, right?
Right. And the fall crops are great to me because they spread your workload out in the fall too. If you have a normal year, you'd have your spring wheat, but you do your winter crops. You're harvesting them first, and then you slowly move into your wheat and your canola and your other crops. So it kind of spreads. But it's just difficult to get the seeder out in the fall in a timely manner when you're busy trying to harvest and try to seed. Like that's what a lot of people have. It's a time management problem to stop. And a lot of times I'll be seeding in the spring and in the morning and combining in the afternoon, which is kind of hard to do if you have a large.
Right. And you would call yourself like a smaller, like as far as land size, a smaller farmer, but you also have many different crops.
Well, diverse. Yeah, we've got a field of flax over here, and the fact that I have flax and rye in the same quarter, those are two really minor crops in this province. Not much of either. Like they're less than 100,000 acres of flax and probably less than 100,000 of rye too. So we're talking, they're not the most popular, but to have these two in this same quarter is kind of neat too. So
yeah.
They're different, but whatever.
And then one last question, John, I wanted to ask about your rye. So what is this going to be turned into? So, I mean, like, I think whiskey right away. I think but is that where this would end up?
There's a limited demand over at the Gimli for the.
That's Crown Royal.
Crown Royal, but that I think I sold 1 year to them, but it has to be really good. Your quality has to be high, and that demand it's a very small. Some of it goes into rye bread too.
Okay, rye bread.
Most of this will go. A lot of this I think is going to go into the U.S. for cover crops. They're going to seed. My buyer buys it from down southern Manitoba, and a lot of it goes across the border. And down in the U.S., what they call cover crops. After they take their crop off, they'll seed a crop of rye, and then they'll spray it out to keep the soil.
So it keeps the weeds out
in a cornfield or a bean field, and it keeps the land from eroding. And then they just terminate it in the spring and then seed something else into it.
Oh, interesting.
It's cover crops, and for that reason.
So clover is a cover crop too, like red clover sometimes.
Yep. And but they don't want hybrid rye in the U.S. So specifically it has to be an open pollinator to go into that market, because the hybrid rye they don't go across the border with as easily with the hybrid rye. I don't know why, but that's what I've been told. So interesting. And man, there's so many rules, and you can't feed this to livestock too. It's not okay. Really, and the straw is sometimes a tough sell, but I've already got people clamoring for straw because it's such a different year, because there's not a lot of wheat. A lot of wheat didn't go in, and it's going to be late. So this straw is going to be available. In high demand. It's going to be early, and they're going to be able to bale it, and there's going to be a lot of it. So and straw is for anybody who has livestock or horses or cattle or for calving or like all those things, right? And also conventional. I have a conventional combine as opposed to a rotary, because the conventional is easier to bale behind. So I have a rotary, but I've switched back to a big conventional because it's too hard to bale behind my old combine. combine, and you get this chopped up stuff because of straw. So that's a kind of not many people have conventional combines as opposed to the newer. Most of the newer combines are all like a rotary design.
Yes,
so that's another issue. But
okay.
So, but I can't say enough good things about fall rye. I've been growing it for 25 years plus, and it just it never ceases. It's really.
It pulls through in every season. Hey,
it's like a 350 Chevy. It just put gas and oil in it and it goes. Like
I love that.
You know, it's just you can't really go wrong. You just stick it in here, and in this case, you can see that this part of the field, we're probably looking at 30 to 35 bushels, maybe. Maybe that's a little high, but the amount of rain we've had, and looking at the heads here.
Well, these are large and, and full.
I have had rye. My best crop of rye did about 85 bushels an acre, but that's quite a few years ago. But I've had usually getting that 60 range, and with fertilizer, but without fertilizer. But considering the rain we've had, and this went into canola stubble, it's finding nutrients. It's finding nutrients somewhere. I don't know how, but it's finding them. So, and you can see there's a fair bit of, and the length of the head is the spike width count is important. These lengths, you don't want these little short. There's a few little short guys here, like some of these are shorter.
Yeah.
But some
you
of
want
those,
these big, long.
The longer the head, and you can see there's quite a few of them here. It's so
that's great because each one represents a seed. Yeah. Right. Each one of these that fan out. So. And
it's really hard to it's not for everybody, but it works. In my case, we've got 140 acres here, and we're going to be harvesting early here. So in a year like this, hey, that's a bonus. So.
Exactly. Well, let's go take a look at your flax field that's just been newly seeded.
Yeah.
All right. So Farmer John, we've made our way out here to your flax field.
Right.
Now, when did you seed this?
This was seeded June the 10th.
Okay, June the 10th. So we're looking at, it's June 26th today, I think.
So it's only had this is 16 days, yeah. It was up in about 5. It came up in about 5 days, which is pretty good. It came up
So that's a fast germinator then.
It came up pretty quick, and it looks good, but it's struggling a bit now. The color of it is just, the ground is just water, is so saturated. Flax is not the best.
So it's not normally, this is almost like a neon green. Like I almost need sunglasses. Like it's quite the color.
There's some that are a little better, but some of them are more limey than the flax just doesn't like wet feet. Flax is just not, it's struggling a bit. But if we would just get some heat, and it'll probably be okay, but it's just, it's a stressor, I guess we'll put it that way.
Okay. And you said that you have had an opportunity, I think there's some tracks people can see going this way here.
Yeah.
That is your fertilizer, you said?
The floater, the big machine with the big 3 wheels and the big tank, and it has booms on it, and it floats the nitrogen. We put nitrogen and potash on this field.
Okay.
And we also used variable rate technology. So the machine, there's 3 or 4 zones in this field where some parts need more fertilizer. So as you're going down the field, it puts different rates of nitrogen where it needs it and not where it doesn't need it. And the same with the potash. So it's pretty cool. It's able to adjust on the go, and you just drive it, and the computer tells when to open up put more fertilizer or less out, and he just drives. And so this is the way the future, where we put fertilizer where we need it and not where we don't. So. And
this is, again, we've talked about this before, using Ag 360 consulting, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And was it Wendy that you deal with? I can't remember.
No, it's Kevin.
Kevin. Okay. Yeah. So
we soil tested last fall, and then they soil test in exactly the same place every year. So you get a grid, so you're always going the same. And then you have these zones, like areas of the field. I think this field has 3 or 4. They're on the map. They're like where better parts, topography, and the soil is slightly different. You can see the variation a little bit. So for that reason, we're putting what the crop needs and not too excessive. Like normally you would just put, the old days you'd put 60 pounds of N over the whole field and 50 pounds of potash. But now we could be varying from 70 to 50 could be varying from 50 to 70, as depending on where it needs it. So it's more site specific to the field, I guess. So,
Okay. And then we're going to both take a quick step here to the side because you were talking about, I say non-GPS, but you call it
auto steer. I steered the tractor here, and this is probably right after dinner when I was a little bit. You can see it's got some character. There's some wiggles in here.
And this isn't twisted tea.
No.
This is.
But just the 90% of the fields around this part of the world are all arrow straight. Like it's physically impossible to drive that straight. So when you look at my fields, they've got some character. I was actually steering the tractor here and doing, so
Yeah.
That's my little wiggles, and they really show up here. You can see.
Yeah, well, especially it's a really great opportunity because we've talked about that before. And I think when you see a regular field, it's very hard to see when your wheat is this high that any of it is, if it was corn, you would notice, right?
Right.
But this, I don't notice so much. And then I think with the variation, if you've got like the darkness of the soil, and then you've got that bright green, it's a really great opportunity to actually see what you're talking about. Yeah. Whereas if you look, the big farmers that are using their GPS and using their equipment, they have auto steer, like when I was with Rob Brunel, and he once it gets locked in, and as long as it's in that path, it's as straight as straight. Like there's no way you could humanly drive that straight. And he even said so. Right. Yeah, that's really cool.
And flax, like I said, around here, you go along to have a flax and a rye field on the same quarter here. Those are two minors, and even though this is worth $35 a bushel to sell, it's still not an.
So why is that? I think that's interesting. You said this is a very high paying crop.
Yeah, but flax
is touchy.
It's touching. Chemicals are touchy. You only have a couple chemicals to choose from, and they're kind of hard on the plant, and your timing is almost.
Explain that, because you were telling me that you're going to have to get this sprayed right away. You said
probably spraying when I like to see it when anywhere from 2 to 4 inches, ideally 3. So if I stick my hand down here, that's roughly 3 inches. If they're into my middle fingers here, that's when we'll be trying to hit it.
And I can see the weeds. Like at this point, I can see the weeds between the row.
You want to spray in the evening. You don't want to spray flax in the morning, because if it turns too warm, if it goes above about 28 Celsius, 27, 20, 27, that range, it's really hard on it. So you want to spray like towards supper, preferably. If in a perfect world, I'd be spraying this just
like 6 p.m.
after. Yeah, and do it late in the evening, because the flax will actually turn over like this, and then and a few days later it'll actually have to straighten back up again.
So it actually stresses the plant.
Flax is you almost the plants almost have to align to get a perfect weed kill with flax, because the moon has to be right, like everything.
So it's a delicate crop in a way.
It's tricky. It's not like other crops where you have a wide window from huge windows from 1 to 6 leaf, or from this. It's a very small range, and you kind of have to hit it, or if we don't control the weeds in here, flax does not compete well. If you leave this wild millet that we're seeing here and a lot of the broadleaf weeds, you won't have much of a crop here. So
it doesn't like competing with those. Weeds.
It doesn't compete well, because it stands up like this. It doesn't have no leaves to it much. It's more of it like a sort of so.
And I'm going to show one of your other flax crops. It's from 2 years ago, I believe, because you and I were doing a show when I was in radio. And so they can see what this is going to look like come, I think that was about mid-July, August, maybe early August. He's already starting to bloom.
Right.
Yeah. So you're saying this year, when would you expect if you had the perfect weather, and we have had far from perfect weather as far as farming is concerned. Yeah. What would this look like if you were going to have an ideal situation? When would be the earliest you can take this crop off?
Oh, this won't be coming off till end of September, early first mid-October kind of thing.
And it can handle the cool weather?
Well, yeah, it's not so much that, it's just that it needs to finish flowering and then set the seed and then not get an early frost and then you got a challenge with the straw too. Flax straw is really tough. Some combines won't do flax very well. Some of these newer combines, the rotaries, it likes to wrap it. Just 2 crops between these 2 are hard to combine. So conventional combines generally do a better job, and that's what I've gone back to conventional. That as opposed to rotary, because they tend to get wrapped up. And some mix.
It's almost like I think about it like when I'm vacuuming the house and we have girls with long hair and it gets wrapped around the roller.
It can be a challenge. Flax straw when it wraps and just makes it round bale and then it starts getting hot and then it catches on fire. Flax is very flammable. You can get people have had you can have a
high oil content, right?
And I've had where it gets hot and you almost risk burning your like it's bad. So
it's interesting because unless I would have the opportunity to talk to a farmer from the area, there's so many interesting hazards and just unique situations that I don't think anybody's even aware of unless you do this for a living.
Well, in fact, there's a few hardcore guys like me. We swear at it and stuff, and we say we'll never grow it again. Then guess what?
Next season.
And the headaches you put up with. I plugged the combine last year, and I had to spend a half a day cutting, get in there with a knife and cutting it because it was doing this wrapping, and you say, oh my, it's like I had two of us there, and we're just cutting with a knife wrapped up, and it was just And then guess what? We're seeding flax again here. So, we're just kind of you're either dyed-in-the-wool flax grower. There's a few new people come on board, but it's not.
But they have to. It's like trial by fire, right?
Yeah, you have to almost like if your uncle grew it, or if you have you think you want to try it, but I would.
Nice to know someone that does it or have.
Yeah, it's a tricky crop to grow. It's not for everybody, and even though the seed we sell is high. I mean, the cost of putting this in was high too. I paid a lot of money for the seed. This seed came from Domain, south of Winnipeg, for crying out loud. This seed came from not far away to seed here. So, because I couldn't get any locally here. So,
wow,
it's difficult, and it just presents a number of challenges. And but I've been growing flax for all my life. So like, it's just something.
It's a love-hate thing, huh?
Yeah, well, and I've had some we've had harvest flax in the spring. We've hired a lot of my dad. We used to combine in the spring and in November above the snow. You're cutting above the snow. I've got pictures of combining in the snow above this much. You're cutting above it, and then combining in March and April, and
so that you can get back on the field and see something else. Interesting.
So we've had a lot of roller coaster with flax. Some years we just never get it. Some years it doesn't set seed. We've had some years where it bloomed, but there's no seed in the head, and we just had to destroy it. It was just so.
Wow.
It's an interesting crop, but
well, I'm really looking forward to coming back and seeing this as the season progresses. We will be back again talking to you, I'm guessing, in a month or two, somewhere in there. And when I get a call and you're like, hey, come check this out, we've got some stuff coming up. And then in the next episode, I know we talked about possibly doing some plowing, which is not common.
We may be forced to because it's so wet. And
you said you only have your farm half seeded, so there's going to be a lot of summer fallow this year. So that's this. And you said a lot of farmers are going to be forced into that, not because they want to, but just because the time to plant seed is running out.
So, and a lot of it will be we call it chem follow, where you can chem follow with chemicals, like use glyphosate and spray it. But there are some weeds that glyphosate doesn't do very well on. So no weed is resistant to steel, we'll put it that way. So when you put steel in there and you flip it over, you kill it. Whereas the Roundup, they're not resistant maybe, but there are a few things that Roundup doesn't do a very good job on, or glyphosate, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, chem follow has a point, but comes a time when you almost have to make it black, make her black, as we used to say. So,
and you said that when you have the summer fallow and you have the black earth over the winter, that's where you really risk soil erosion.
Soil erosion is a problem
because the winter winds blow your field away, because you only have like 5 inches of topsoil if you're lucky.
We don't have much here. No, we're not blessed with a lot here. So by putting a winter crop into a summer fall field, you'll give it some cover and get some growth there and keep it from
blowing away.
So you want to go to your neighbors, so you want to keep it in your own place. So.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Farmer John. This was a fun day. We kind of just hit 3 fields, but boy, time flies, hey?
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks again.
Yeah, we'll see you again. Thank you.
Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa has been inspiring love, confidence, and health and humanity since 2019. Dr. Brenna's skin therapists have the advanced knowledge required to revitalize and rejuvenate your skin. Radiofrequency, microneedles, chemical peels, and oxygen neo superfacials are just a couple of the treatments we offer. To learn more about Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa, visit our website at threegraces.ca or call us at 204-572-5774 for a free consultation. Thank you to our show sponsors, Bankert Marketing, Dr. Brenna and Three Graces Medispa, Real Security Solutions, Right Side Equipment of Dauphin, Oil Depot of Dauphin, Roofs, Furniture and Appliances of Dauphin, Tri Family, Health, Beauty and Fine Gifts of the Paw, Ramsey's Health and Fitness of Dauphin, Cloud9 Canna Supplies of Dauphin, and Hearts to Nature Fine Art Nature Photography. See you next week.